"I'll give you my body every night," the giant mail-order bride said to the lonely rancher until one day. "I'll give you my body every night," the giant mail-order bride whispered to the lonely rancher on their wedding night in 1878, standing 6'1" in her threadbare nightgown, hands trembling as she unbuttoned the top clasp. But Garrett Walsh did something no man had ever done before. He said no. Magnolia Brennan had traveled 2,000 miles from Boston, fleeing an abusive arranged marriage, believing her towering frame and unfeminine strength made her worthless, except for one thing, the physical duty every wife owed her husband. The lonely rancher, a Civil War veteran haunted by loss and grief, had purchased a mail-order bride out of desperation, not desire, his Wyoming ranch crumbling as fast as his will to live. She offered her body like a transaction, a nightly payment for shelter and safety. He refused it like a curse, terrified of taking what she gave without love. For 3 months, the giant mail-order bride appeared in his doorway every single night with those same words, "I'll give you my body every night." For 3 months, the lonely rancher sent her away, watching her work herself to the bone during the day, believing labor was the only language of worth she knew. But what happens when a woman who thinks she's only valuable for her body collapses from exhaustion, and a man who's afraid to feel anything realizes he's fallen desperately in love with her soul? What happens when the thing she offered so freely becomes the one thing he wants to earn? And what happens on that one day when everything they thought they knew about duty, desire, and devotion shatters completely? Why would a lonely rancher reject the one thing his giant mail-order bride kept, offering him every single night, and what would finally make him accept it? 24 hours earlier, Magnolia Brennan stood on the train platform in Sweetwater Station, Wyoming Territory, holding everything she owned in a single worn canvas. Beg. The October wind cut through her thin dress like a knife, but she didn't flinch. She'd learned long ago not to show weakness. The train behind her hissed and groaned, preparing to leave, and for one terrible moment she thought about climbing back on, running again, disappearing into another city where no one knew her name or her shame, but there was nowhere left to run. She scanned the platform, looking for the man who'd answered her desperate letter, Garrett Walsh, age 34, widower, ranch owner. The advertisement had been simple, almost cold. Seeking strong woman for marriage, must work hard, no romance expected. Those last 3 words had sold her. No romance expected, no pretending, no lying about what she was or what she could offer. Just honest work and a roof over her head. Then she saw him. He stood apart from the crowd, hat in one hand, the other gripping a wooden cane. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that needed cutting and a face carved by grief. His eyes were grey like storm clouds, and when they landed on her, she saw him freeze. His mouth opened slightly, his grip on the cane tightened. She knew that look. She'd seen it 1,000 times. Shock, disbelief, revulsion, poorly masked as surprise. Magnolia lifted her chin and walked toward him, her boots heavy on the wooden planks. She towered over most of the men on the platform, her shadow swallowing them. Children pointed, women whispered behind gloved hands. She heard the word giant 3 times before she reached him. "Mr. Walsh?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. He blinked, seemed to shake himself. "Miss Brennan." He extended his hand, and when she took it, his palm was rough with calluses. "Welcome to Wyoming. Thank you for agreeing to this." She dropped his hand quickly, hating the way her fingers dwarfed his. "I know I'm not what you expected." His jaw tightened. "The wagon's this way." They walked in silence through the town, and Magnolia felt every stare like a brand on her skin. A boy ran past, then stopped and turned back, eyes wide. "Mama, look, how big she is." "Hush, Thomas!" His mother yanked him away, but not before shooting Magnolia a look of pure disdain. Garrett's hand twitched toward his gun, but Magnolia touched his arm. "Don't. I'm used to it." You shouldn't have to be." The words were so quiet she almost missed them. The wagon ride to his ranch took an hour through rolling prairie that stretched forever under an endless sky. Magnolia had never seen so much space, so much emptiness. In Boston, buildings pressed against each other like frightened children. Here, the land breathed. "The house isn't much," Garrett said finally, breaking the silence. "2 bedrooms, kitchen, parlor. You'll have your own room until—" He cleared his throat. "Until you're comfortable." "That won't be necessary, Mr. Walsh." Magnolia kept her eyes on the horizon. "I understand the terms of our arrangement." The terms. She turned to look at him, really look at him. His face was handsome beneath the grief, strong-featured and honest, but his eyes were dead. Whatever light had once lived there had been snuffed out, leaving only ash and shadow. "I'm 28 years old," she said, her voice flat and rehearsed. "I've been called a freak, a beast, a monster since I was 12. No man has ever wanted me except one, and he only wanted something to beat when he was drunk." She watched Garrett's knuckles turn white on the reins. "I know why men seek mail-order brides, Mr. Walsh. I know what's expected, and I know I bring nothing to this marriage except strong hands and a healthy body. Miss Brennan, I'll work hard. I'll cook, clean, mend, and help with the ranch, and I'll give you my body every night, as is your right as my husband. That's the bargain. That's all I have to offer." The words tasted like poison in her mouth, but they were true. She'd learned the hard way that her worth was measured in what she could do, not who she was. Her father had taught her that when he sold her to Declan Murphy to settle a gambling debt. Murphy had taught her that when he beat her for being too tall, too strong, too much woman for any man to handle. Garrett was quiet for a long time. The wagon wheels creaked. A hawk screamed overhead. "That's not—" he started, but she cut him off. "Please." The word came out sharper than she intended. "Let's not pretend this is a love match. I need safety and a home. You need a wife. We both understand the transaction." Garrett's jaw worked like he wanted to argue, but finally he just nodded. "All right, we'll figure it out as we go." They rode the rest of the way in silence, and Magnolia tried not to think about the wedding tomorrow, or the night that would follow, or the lifetime of nights after that. She'd survived worse. She'd survived this too. They married the next day in a small wooden church that smelled of pine and old hymn books. Pastor Elijah Thorne performed the ceremony with his wife Ruth, standing as witness, along with Garrett's ranch hand, a weathered man named Silas Polk, who kept staring at Magnolia like she was a miracle he couldn't quite believe. The church had 12 pews, and 6 of them were empty. Magnolia wore the same dress she'd arrived in, washed and pressed, but still showing its age. Garrett wore a black suit that hung loose on his frame, like he'd lost weight and never bothered replacing it. Ruth Thorne tried to be kind. "Such a lovely bride," she said, her voice bright and nervous. "And so?" "Statuesque." Magnolia had heard every version of that word. Statuesque, impressive, striking, all polite ways of saying what people really thought. Unnatural, freakish, wrong. "Thank you," she said. "Because that's what you were supposed to say." The ceremony lasted 10 minutes. Garrett's voice was steady when he said, "I do," but his eyes never quite met hers. When Pastor Thorne said, "You may kiss your bride," Garrett leaned in and pressed his lips to hers for exactly 2 seconds. It felt like nothing, like kissing a stranger in a dream. Then it was over. Mrs. Magnolia Walsh, a new name for a new life. She should have felt something, hope, fear, anything. Instead, she just felt tired. They rode back to the ranch in silence. The house came into view as the sun began to set, painting the sky blood red and gold. It was a 2-story wooden structure that had once been white, but now looked gray with neglect. The porch sagged on one side. Several shutters hung crooked, The barn behind it leaned like a drunk man. This was her home now. Garrett helped her down from the wagon, his hand firm on her elbow. For a moment their eyes met, and she saw something flash across his face. Uncertainty, maybe, or regret. "I'll show you around," he said. The inside was worse than the outside. Dust covered every surface like a burial shroud. Dishes were piled in the kitchen sink, some with food still crusted on them. The parlor held a single chair facing a cold fireplace. Everything smelled of loneliness and abandonment. "I'm sorry," Garrett said quietly. "I let things go after Sarah died. Sarah, his first wife. The woman Magnolia was replacing. How long ago?" Magnolia asked. 2 years, almost to the day." He moved to the fireplace, traced a finger through the dust on the mantel. "Pneumonia took her in 3 days. She was 27. I'm sorry for your loss. Are you?" He turned to look at her, and for the first time, she saw real emotion in those dead eyes. Anger, maybe, or pain so old it had calcified into something harder. "You're standing in her house, wearing a ring I bought for her replacement, about to sleep in her bed. Are you really sorry, or is that just what people say?" The words should have hurt, but Magnolia understood them. She'd lived with ghosts, too. "I'm sorry she died," Magnolia said carefully. "I'm sorry you loved someone and lost them. I'm sorry the world is cruel and unfair and takes good people too soon. And I'm sorry I can never be her no matter how hard I try." Garrett stared at her for a long moment, then looked away. "Your room is upstairs. Second door on the right. I'll sleep in my own room tonight. Let you settle in." But Magnolia remembered the arrangement. She remembered what she'd promised. "Mr. Walsh." "Garrett. Call me Garrett." Garrett. The name felt strange in her mouth. "I told you I understood the terms. I meant it. You're exhausted. It's been a long day. It's our wedding night. I know what night it is." His voice was sharp now, defensive. "But you don't owe me anything yet. Take tonight. Rest." Magnolia wanted to argue, wanted to get it over with, wanted to start paying the debt she owed for safety and shelter. But the way he was looking at her, not with desire or expectation, but with something almost like pain, made her swallow her words. "As you wish," she said. She climbed the stairs to the second floor, found the room he'd mentioned, and closed the door behind her. The room was small but clean, cleaner than the rest of the house. A single bed with a faded quilt, a washstand with a cracked mirror, a window that looked out over empty prairie. Magnolia sat on the bed and waited for tears that never came. She'd cried herself dry years ago. Instead, she undressed in the darkness, washed her face and hands in the cold water from the basin, and lay down in her shift. Through the thin walls, she heard Garrett moving in the next room, heard his boots hit the floor one at a time, heard the creak of his bed as he lay down. She wondered if he was thinking about Sarah. She wondered if she'd ever be anything more than a shadow in this house. The next morning, Magnolia woke before dawn out of habit. In Boston, in Declan Murphy's house, sleeping late earned you a beating. She dressed quickly in her work clothes, a plain brown dress and sturdy boots, and made her way downstairs. The kitchen was a disaster. But kitchens, she understood. Kitchens had rules. You cleaned, you cooked, you made order from chaos. She started with the dishes, pumping water from the well outside and heating it on the wood stove. She scrubbed until her hands were raw, until every plate and cup gleamed. Then she tackled the counters, the floor, the windows. She found flour and salt and lard in the pantry and made biscuits from memory, the way her mother had taught her before the consumption took her. By the time Garrett came downstairs, the kitchen smelled like fresh bread and coffee, and the morning sun was streaming through clean windows. He stopped in the doorway and stared. "You didn't have to do this," he said. "I'm your wife. This is what wives do." "Still, you should have slept longer. I'm used to early mornings." She set a plate of biscuits in front of him, along with butter and jam she'd found in the cellar. "Eat. You're too thin." He almost smiled. Almost. "So are you." They ate in silence, and Magnolia watched him from the corner of her eye. He ate like a man who'd forgotten food could taste good. Slowly at first, then faster. He finished 4 biscuits before he seemed to realize what he'd done. "These are—" He stopped, swallowed hard. Sarah used to make biscuits like this. There it was again. Sarah, the ghost who lived in every room. I can make something else, Magnolia offered. No, they're perfect. Thank you. After breakfast, Garrett showed her the ranch. 500 acres of rolling grassland, most of it empty. He'd had cattle once, he said, but sold off most of the herd when he couldn't afford to feed them. Now he had maybe 50 head, and even those were scattered. I need to round them up before winter, he said, leaning against a fence post. Get them closer to the barn. But with just me and Silas, he trailed off, the impossibility of the task hanging in the air. I can help, Magnolia said. He looked at her sideways. You ever worked cattle? No, but I'm strong and I learn fast. It's hard work. Dangerous sometimes. I'm not afraid of hard work. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or the beginning of respect. All right, we start tomorrow. That night after dinner, after Magnolia had washed more dishes and swept more floors and made the house look almost alive again, she climbed the stairs to Garrett's room. She didn't knock. She opened the door and stepped inside, wearing the same threadbare nightgown she'd worn the night before. Her hair was down, falling past her shoulders in waves she'd never learned to tame. Garrett was sitting on the edge of his bed, unlacing his boots. He looked up, startled. Maggie, I'll give you my body every night, she said, the words mechanical, rehearsed. That's what I promised. I keep my promises. His face did something complicated, pain and confusion, and something that might have been longing. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. She moved closer, began unbuttoning the top of her nightgown with trembling fingers. This is all I have to offer. Please don't take it away from me. Stop! He stood, caught her hands before she could undo the third button. His touch was gentle but firm. Just stop. I don't understand. I know. He let go of her hands but didn't step back. Maggie, what you're offering, it should mean something. It should be more than a transaction. Why? The question came out sharper than she intended. What else could it be? You needed a wife. I needed a home. We made an arrangement. I'm trying to hold up my end. And what about what I want? Tell me what you want, then. Tell me, and I'll do it. Garrett stared at her for a long time, and Magnolia saw something break behind his eyes. I want you to look at me like I'm human, he said quietly. Not like I'm a debt you're paying off. I want you to say my name like it means something. I want... He stopped, shook his head. I want things I have no right to want. Magnolia felt something crack in her chest, something she'd thought was dead. I don't know how to do that, she whispered. Neither do I. He stepped back, putting distance between them. But maybe we can figure it out together as partners. Partners. You're my wife. That means we're in this together. All of it, the work, the struggle, He gestured helplessly. Everything. Not employer and employee. Partners. Magnolia wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him so badly it hurt, but she'd learned the hard way that men lied. All right, she said carefully. Partners. She left his room and went back to her own. And for the first time since she was 12 years old, Magnolia Brennan Walsh let herself hope that maybe, just maybe, she could be worth more than what her body could do. November came fast and cold, bringing with it snow that turned the prairie into an endless white ocean. Magnolia threw herself into ranch life like a woman possessed, waking before dawn, working until her hands bled, collapsing into bed long after dark. She cooked 3 meals a day, thick stews, fresh bread, pies made from preserved apples she found in the cellar. She scrubbed the house until it gleamed, mended Garrett's clothes that had been held together with hope and stubbornness, organized the barn, repaired fences, and learned to work cattle with a determination that left even Silas shaking his head in wonder. He'd never seen nothing like her, Silas told Garrett one afternoon as they watched Maggie wrestle a stubborn heifer back toward the herd. She's got the strength of 3 men and the work ethic of 10. Garrett nodded, but his eyes were troubled. Because what Silas saw as admirable, Garrett saw as something else entirely, a woman trying to earn her right to exist, working herself to death to prove she deserved the space she took up in the world. Every night, like clockwork, Maggie appeared in his doorway. I'll give you my body every night, she'd say. the words never changing, like a prayer she'd memorized but didn't believe in. And every night, Garrett sent her away. "Not tonight, Maggie. I'm tired. Maybe tomorrow. You should rest." He watched confusion flicker across her face each time, then something worse. Hurt, maybe, or shame. Like his rejection was proof of what she'd always suspected, that she was too much, too big, too wrong to be wanted even in the dark. But Garrett couldn't take what she offered with such joyless resignation. He'd done many things in his life he wasn't proud of, but he wouldn't do that. He wouldn't use her like that. During the days, they worked side by side. Garrett taught her about cattle, about reading weather signs in the clouds, about the rhythms of ranch life that changed with the seasons. She was a fast learner, asking smart questions, offering practical solutions he'd never considered. "If we move the herd to the south pasture," she said one morning, studying the land with shrewd eyes, "they'll have better shelter from the north wind. And that creek doesn't freeze as fast. They'll have water longer," Garrett blinked. That's actually brilliant. "Why didn't I think of that?" "Because you've been doing it the same way for years," she said simply. "Sometimes you need fresh eyes." They moved the herd that afternoon, and Maggie was right. The cattle settled better, ate better, looked healthier within days. "You've got a gift for this," Garrett told her that evening over dinner. She looked up from her plate, surprised. "For what?" "For ranching. For seeing 3 steps ahead. For—" He gestured helplessly. "For all of it." A faint blush colored her cheeks. "My father ran a shipping warehouse in Ireland before he drank it away. He taught me about logistics, about thinking ahead, about—" She stopped, the memory clearly painful. "Before everything went wrong." "What happened?" She was quiet for a long time, pushing food around her plate. "Then I got too tall, too strong, too unmarriageable. My father saw me as a burden, then an asset. He sold me to Declan Murphy to settle a gambling debt." Garrett's fork clattered against his plate. "He sold you?" "Like livestock." Her voice was flat, empty. "Murphy needed a worker, someone to cook and clean and haul and lift, someone who could take a beating without breaking. I was perfect for the job, Maggie. I ran the night before the wedding, stole everything I'd hidden away over 2 years, $37, and bought passage to America. Thought I could disappear in Boston, find work, start over." She laughed, but it was a broken sound. "Turns out, a 6-foot-tall Irish woman is hard to hide. Murphy's cousins found me within a month. Beat me so badly I couldn't walk for a week. Told me next time they'd kill me." Garrett reached across the table and took her hand. She flinched, but didn't pull away. "That's when the doctor told me," she continued, staring at their joined hands. "After the beating. He said I'd never have children. Something Murphy did, something he broke inside me that couldn't be fixed." She finally looked up, and her eyes were dry but devastated. "So I have nothing to offer a husband except work and duty. That's all I have left. That's not true, isn't it?" She pulled her hand away. "Look at me, Garrett. Really look at me. I'm a freak, a monster. Too tall, too strong, too masculine. I can't give you children. I can't even give you a normal wife you wouldn't be ashamed to be seen with in town." "Stop." The word came out harder than he intended. "Just stop saying those things." "Why?" "They're true. They're lies Murphy beat into you. They're lies your father sold you for. They're lies the world tells women who don't fit in a pretty little box." Garrett stood up, moved around the table, and knelt in front of her chair so they were eye to eye. "You want to know what I see when I look at you?" She shook her head, but he continued anyway. "I see a woman who survived things that would have destroyed most people. I see someone brilliant and capable and strong, not just physically, but in here." He touched her chest, right over her heart. "I see someone who makes me want to be better, do better, live better. And I see someone beautiful." "Don't lie to me," her voice cracked. "Please don't lie. I'm not." He cupped her face in both hands. "Maggie, you're beautiful. Not in spite of your height or your strength, but because of who you are. The way you sing Irish songs while you cook. The way you gentle the animals, even though you could break them in half. The way you've brought life back into this dead house. That's beautiful. You're beautiful." A tear slipped down her cheek and Garrett caught it with his thumb. "I don't know how to believe you," she whispered. Then let me prove it. Every day, for as long as it takes. That night Maggie didn't come to his door. Garrett lay awake listening to the wind howl outside, wondering if he'd said too much or not enough, if he'd scared her or given her hope. If anything he'd said had penetrated the armor she'd built around herself. In the room next door, Maggie lay awake too, touching the place on her chest where Garrett's hand had rested, trying to remember the last time someone had touched her with gentleness instead of violence. December arrived with bitter cold and endless work. They had to break ice on the water troughs twice a day, haul hay to the cattle, repair damage from the wind, keep the house warm, and somehow prepare for Christmas, even though neither of them felt like celebrating. Maggie worked harder, longer hours, more tasks, like if she just did enough, worked enough, proved enough. Maybe she could silence the voices in her head that said she was worthless. Garrett watched her push herself to the breaking point and didn't know how to stop her without making it worse. Then came December 3rd. Maggie had insisted on hauling hay to the far pasture alone. Garrett had told her to wait, that he and Silas would do it tomorrow, but she'd gone anyway. Stubborn. Determined to prove she could handle anything, she was on her third trip when her body finally gave out. One moment, she was walking through knee-deep snow, pulling a sledge loaded with hay bales. The next, her legs simply stopped working. She fell forward onto her hands and knees, the cold seeping through her gloves, her breath coming in gasps that burned her lungs. "Get up," she told herself. "Get up, you're almost there, just a little farther, get up." But her body wouldn't listen. She tried to push herself up and collapsed again. Tried a second time and made it to her knees before the world started spinning. Tried a third time and couldn't even lift her head. That's when the tears came. Not delicate tears, not quiet tears, but huge, wrenching sobs that tore out of her chest like they'd been buried there for years. She knelt in the snow and cried for everything. For her lost childhood, for the father who'd sold her, for the man who'd beaten her, for the children she'd never have, for the life she'd never get to live. She cried for being too much and not enough all at once. She cried because she was so tired, so endlessly bone-deep tired, and she didn't know how to stop trying to earn her right to exist. That's where Garrett found her. He'd gotten worried when she didn't come back, had saddled his horse despite the pain in his leg, and ridden out to find her. When he saw her collapsed in the snow, his heart stopped. "Maggie!" He was off his horse and beside her in seconds, hands on her shoulders. "What happened? Are you hurt?" "I can't," she sobbed, not even looking up. "I can't do it anymore, Garrett. I'm trying so hard. I'm trying to be worth keeping. I'm trying to earn my place here. But I can't. I'm not strong enough. I'm not good enough. Stop, stop!" He pulled her against his chest and she collapsed into him like a puppet with cut strings. "You don't have to earn anything. You don't have to prove anything. Maggie, you're killing yourself and I can't watch it anymore. But it's all I have." The words came out in a wail. "Don't you understand? I can't give you children. I'm not beautiful. I'm not graceful. The only thing I can do is work. If I can't even do that, why would you keep me? Why would anyone keep me?" The words hit Garrett like a physical blow. He'd known she felt worthless. He'd seen it in the way she offered herself like a sacrifice every night. But hearing her say it out loud, hearing the absolute conviction in her voice that her only value was what she could do, it broke something inside him. "Is that what you think?" he asked, his voice rough. "That I'll throw you away if you're not useful?" "Everyone else did." Garrett pulled back just enough to look at her face. Her eyes were swollen, her nose was running, her cheeks were red from cold and tears. She looked nothing like the composed woman who showed up at his door every night with that mechanical offer. She looked real. She looked human. She looked like someone he loved. The realization hit him like lightning. He loved her, not because she worked hard. Not because she cooked well or cleaned or helped with the cattle. He loved her because of who she was underneath all that desperate trying, the woman who sang sad songs, who gentled frightened animals, who looked at the stars like they held answers, who was so much stronger than she knew, in ways that had nothing to do with physical strength. "Maggie Brennan Walsh," he said, holding her face in both hands. "You are worth more than your labor. You're worth more than your body. You're worth more than anything you can do for me or anyone else. You don't mean that." "I do. I love you." She went completely still. "What? I'm in love with you?" "Have been for weeks, maybe since that first wagon ride, when you looked at me with those fierce green eyes and told me exactly what you thought this marriage was." He brushed away her tears with his thumbs. "I love how your mind works 3 steps ahead of everyone else. I love how you make this house feel alive again. I love your strength, yes, but not because it makes you useful, because it's part of you, part of the incredible woman you are. But I can't give you children. I don't care." And he meant it with every fiber of his being. "After Sarah died, after I lost my parents and my sister, I thought I'd never feel anything again. I thought I was dead inside, just walking around out of habit. Then you showed up and you made me want to live again. Not because of what you do, but because of who you are." "I don't know how to be loved," she whispered. "I don't know how. Neither do I." He pressed his forehead against hers. "But maybe we can figure it out together. No more transactions, no more earning, just us, partners in everything. I'm scared, so am I. I'm terrified. Because losing you would destroy me worse than losing Sarah did. But I'd rather be terrified and alive than safe and dead inside." Maggie looked at him for a long moment, really looked at him, and saw in his eyes what she'd been too afraid to hope for: genuine love, not for what she could do, but for who she was. "I love you too," she breathed. "God help me. I love you so much it terrifies me." Garrett kissed her then, there in the snow with the wind howling around them, and it was nothing like the mechanical brush of lips at their wedding. This was real, desperate, full of promise and hope and fear and everything that made them human. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were crying. "Take me home," Maggie asked. "Always." He helped her onto his horse, climbed up behind her, and wrapped his arms around her waist. As they rode back to the ranch through the falling snow, Maggie leaned back against his chest and let herself believe, maybe for the first time in her entire life, that she was exactly enough just as she was. That night, when Maggie appeared in Garrett's doorway, everything was different. She wasn't wearing obligation-like armor. She wasn't reciting words she'd memorized. She just stood there, vulnerable and real, her hair loose around her shoulders. "May I stay with you?" she whispered. Garrett's throat tightened. "Please!" She crossed the room slowly, and when she reached him, he pulled her close. This time when they kissed, there was no desperation, just tenderness and discovery. 2 broken people learning they could be whole together. Their lovemaking was slow and real and awkward and beautiful. Nothing like the transaction she'd offered every night. This was communion, 2 souls finding each other in the darkness. Afterward, lying tangled together, Maggie said, "I never thought I could have this." "What?" "Someone who sees all of me and doesn't flinch." Garrett tightened his arms around her. "I see you, Maggie. All of you. And you're magnificent." She buried her face in his chest, and he felt her tears. Different tears now. Not shame, but relief. The tears of someone who'd carried crushing weight for so long, they'd forgotten what it felt like to breathe. "I love you," she whispered fiercely. "I didn't think I was capable anymore. But I do. I know. I feel it." He kissed her head. "And I'm going to spend every day making sure you never doubt your worth again." They fell asleep like that. 2 broken people who'd found wholeness in each other's arms. Spring came, bringing with it new life. The ranch prospered under their partnership. They took in 3 orphaned siblings, Nora, Finn, and Ruby, children who needed to learn the same lesson Maggie had, that they were valuable simply for existing. One evening, Garrett found Maggie on the porch, watching sunset paint the sky in gold and crimson. The children were playing in the yard, their laughter carrying on the wind. "What are you thinking?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "About that first night. When I offered you my body like it was the only thing I had." She leaned back against him. "I was so wrong, Garrett. I had so much more. I just couldn't see it. What changed? You saw me when I couldn't see myself. You loved me when I didn't know I was lovable." She turned in his arms. You gave me time to realize I was worth more than what I could do or sacrifice. Garrett cupped her face. You saved my life too. I was dead inside, just walking around out of habit. You brought me back to life. We saved each other then. That's what love is. Two people choosing each other over and over. Maggie kissed him, deep and full of promise. When they pulled apart, she whispered, I'll give you my body every night. Garrett tensed, but she continued smiling. And my mind every morning. My laughter through the day. My tears when I need to cry. My strength when you're weak. I'll give you every piece of myself for as long as we both shall live. Not as payment, not as obligation, but as gift, as choice, as love. Garrett's eyes filled with tears. That is the best offer anyone has ever made me. Then accept it, with my whole heart, forever. They stood under the Wyoming stars, holding each other, two people who'd found the one thing they'd both believed impossible, unconditional love. Inside, children slept safely. The ranch prospered. The future stretched before them, full of promise. And Magnolia Walsh, who'd once believed her only value was what her body could do, finally understood the truth. She was valuable simply because she existed. She was worthy of love simply because she was alive. She was enough, more than enough, exactly as she was. Years later, when people asked about their marriage, Garrett always said, I married a woman who thought she had only one thing to offer. It took me months to show her she had everything. I'm still proving I'm worthy of it. And Maggie would smile and add, love is seeing someone completely, all their broken pieces, and choosing them anyway, every single day. Not transactions, just choice, just love. Now we want to hear from you. Have you ever felt like you had to earn your worth? Like you needed to prove you deserved love or belonging? What helped you realize you were valuable just as you are? Share your story in the comments below and tell us where you're watching from. We love connecting with viewers from all over the world.